Content is intended to provide accurate information, however, is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult a financial, legal, or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. Opinions expressed and provided are for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.
Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. McIntire Retirement Services, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into the program. This is your Game Plan for Retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning, helping to uncomplicate the financial world. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. Chris McIntire here with us, as always, providing guidance and insight for your planning purposes from an investment, from a retirement standpoint. And Chris, we always appreciate your guidance here on the show.
Hey, nice to be with you here heading into the Halloween season there, Peter. I'm sure that you got all your candy bought already. Something tells me.
I do not, actually. Usually I'm very proactive in getting that done, but I have not. And in years past on the program, Chris, we have shared a couple stories of Halloween candy. I might be repeating some of those. The Halloween candy to me is one of the best analogies for your retirement savings. It's like you never have enough, and when you do, you're scared to give it away, and then you end up with a whole bunch at the end of the night. So one way or another, you got to find that perfect balance to have just enough Halloween candy.
Yeah, and if you get too many Reese's peanut butter cups, you can always barter.
There are never too many of those. That is the one that I steal from my son's candy basket every year. He knows that that's the dad tax.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And speaking of taxes, I think we're going to go into that, aren't we?
We're going to talk a little bit about taxes today, Chris. We're going to talk about inflation. We're going to talk about fees on our accounts. These are three big things that we are hearing a lot about that we definitely need to pay attention to. And Chris, proactively, we can do a bit of planning to control some of these, at least their effects on us to a great extent.
Yeah, certainly is, Peter. We've been reaching out to our clients right now on the tax side of things to, work into Roth IRA conversions, moving money from a traditional IRA, paying some tax on it and and then putting it into a Roth IRA, where it will be income tax free. It won't have any required minimum distributions. It'll pass income tax free onto the beneficiaries as well. So that's just one example of what we do for taxation on the IRA side of things. On the non-IRA side of things, then we want to look at our clients' accounts to say, okay, hey, we've got a couple of stocks here that are down for the year. Should we sell them and take the loss right now to offset gains that we may realize down the road? So we harvest gains and harvest losses as well. And that would be on the non-IRA side of things.
Chris, it's funny when you talk about the Roth conversions, Roth contributions, there's a lot of confusion there. In fact, there's a lot of confusion about when the taxes are due with 401ks and IRAs in general. I recently had somebody ask me if they had to pay taxes at all. They said they thought that once they passed 65 years old, that they did not have to pay taxes on their 401k or IRA distributions.
Yeah, some of the things that people hear or think that they have heard are different than what is actually in the law. A lot of folks think those distributions that are required start at age 70. Well, it was 70 and a half anyway, and now it's actually 72. And, all of the confusion. And like you say, you mean I have to pay tax on my IRA distributions? I said, yep, you haven't paid any tax on any of that money. And they said, well, why did I do this in the first place? Well, income tax rates were a lot higher back then. Income tax rates are a lot lower right now from a historical standpoint, if we want to look at especially the last 30 years. And then, so when do you want to pay the taxes? When you pass away at whatever rate they're going to be when it passes on to the kids? Or do you want to more manage that approach and say, okay, let's get some money out of the IRA account before they mandate us having to take it out? Because when they mandate you having to take it out at age 72, you cannot put those required minimum distributions into Roth IRAs.
It is defaulting to the IRS's plan or being proactive with your own plan. And defaulting to the IRS's plan, rarely ever the plan that is in our best interest. Proactive usually beats it hands down and by a significant amount. And that is one of the things that Chris McIntire helps his clients to better plan for, to better understand, and to look at the true value of being proactive. How much? Quantify how much will that difference make? And oftentimes for the average 60 to 65-year-old projecting that out, it can be a significant amount. To life expectancy with an assumed growth rate, it may equate to about the balance, the current balance of your tax deferred accounts, of what you may save in taxes by being just a little proactive. Chris can help you crunch those numbers, ladies and gentlemen. Pick up the phone, give him a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194 to reach Chris McIntire at McIntire Retirement Services. And Chris, going into depth on a tax analysis and report, that's just one of the benefits of the game plan for retirement that you help people put together.
Certainly is. We personally pay very close attention to our own tax climate that we live in. And so, I'm kind of a geek about the tax side of things. So we certainly want to help our clients manage, their tax rates as efficiently and as effectively as we possibly can. And as we get close to the end of the year right now, that's where that Roth IRA conversion comes into play more so, because most people know what they've made up to this point. They know what they're going to need to get them until January 1st. So it gives us a little bit more freedom to, remove some of the unknowns. We don't typically do Roth IRA conversions in January like we do in November, right? To give you an example.
Well, again, these are all different aspects of planning proactively for the tax liability that you will have into the future. Pick up the phone, give a call. Tax is certainly something that we're hearing an awful lot about, and it means that we all need to think about this, sit down, address it in our planning. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Chris, it seemed like a good deal at the time when we were making that arrangement to not pay tax on our retirement nest egg. That seemed like a fantastic deal. And yes, tax rates have come down, but at the same time, our money has grown. And so even if we are in a lower tax bracket or at a lower tax rate today, if we've got 2 or 3 or 4 times the amount of money in that account, we still may end up paying significantly more in taxes. It's funny how the IRS understood that compounding interest would work in their favor.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you have to remember that, part of our Social Security benefit can become taxable as well. Our Medicare premiums can be increased because of our taxable income. So there are all these little what do you want to call them? Potholes or that you have to avoid, or holes in your bucket where dollars can certainly work, fall through the cracks, if you will. And, understanding how this occurs to you and your specific implications, the larger the IRA, the more the required minimum distribution. So, for a lot of folks, when we do a Roth conversion, and remember, anybody can convert their IRA or part of it to a Roth. Not everybody can contribute to a Roth. So we get into that contributions and conversions discussion as well. So what we're talking about today, folks, everybody has the ability to do this, regardless of whatever your age is, too. So if you have an IRA and you're 35 years old, you can convert it to a Roth IRA. You don't have to pay that 10% early withdrawal penalty because it's still in an IRA account. Okay?
A lot of people are also confused about the income limitations, Chris. No matter what your income is, you can get some dollars into those tax-free Roth accounts as well.
Yeah, as far as contributions, you certainly can as well. And then there are other ways around some of those. If you go over those limits, there's a backdoor Roth, we call it. And, so there are some, some other ways to get money into Roth IRAs. If you make too much money and you cannot contribute directly, you can do a backdoor Roth, but anybody can do their Roth conversions. And if you think about it here, Peter, just from a pure basic tax standpoint. So if we got a married couple listening today, and we'll just use round numbers here. If your income is about $80,000, okay, you're just about at the top of the 12% federal income tax bracket. Okay. But remember, you get a $25,100 standard deduction. So they take $25,100 off the top of that. So, basically you're paying tax on what, $55,000. So why wouldn't you want to max out that 12% tax bracket? The next tax bracket's 22%. So, that's kind of the analogy that Peter and I talk about here, how many times throughout the year, that, making sure you're maximizing the tax bracket you're currently in, and, by and large, that 12% tax bracket by all means.
Well, again, these are some of the strategic moves that can help you save money on taxes. So if you are concerned about taxes moving into our future and want to plan proactively, would like to address that concern and be more efficient with your money, reduce or eliminate paying unnecessary taxes, keep more of your own money, pick up the phone, run through that game plan for retirement, specifically the tax analysis component of the game plan for retirement. Just one of the facets. Chris McIntire will help you look at your investments, your income, the taxation, the fees that you're paying, the risks that you're taking, the taxes that you may be liable for is a big piece of making the most of your financial future. It's been about asset accumulation, investment management to this point. Moving forward, for many of us, it's going to be about tax management. And Chris McIntire can certainly help you with that with proactive planning. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Now, Chris, maybe not as many strategic moves for this next one, but inflation, another issue that we're hearing an awful lot about. And I say that, and then it comes to mind that if we've got excess money earning excessively low interest rates, like many bonds or bond funds right now, or certainly money sitting in a checking or saving earning 0.01%, that there probably is actually a way to help to at least offset or address some elements of inflation.
Yeah, there certainly is. And like Peter says, with the bond prices being very low right now, that's hard, for investors as they get toward retirement, because they've got this mindset that, all right, I need to get more conservative. If I'm investing in those target date retirement funds, I'm going more and more into bonds that are paying less and less interest, when I might need income the most. So sometimes we have to revisit that strategy and think, look, let's look at some other alternatives that are out there to this lower inflation environment you have, because I think most of us would agree that the real rate of inflation right now is probably in that 4 to 6% range. And so let's take the high end of that. If they're going to pass some, gazillion dollar spending thing, spend money on everything and tax everything and spend even more, is kind of the, what this current administration so far, and we're not getting into the politics, but let's be honest, $5.5 trillion of spending is an unbelievable amount of money. So we could probably say taxes will go up, and that could cause inflation to rise. We have too much money chasing too few goods. Look at the housing market, right? Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I was going to say, Chris, it's not even like that revenue, those dollars were collected as tax revenue. Those dollars were literally kind of just created out of thin air, digitized or printed. The Federal Reserve Economic Data, FRED, you can go and you can look at charts of the currency currently in circulation. 20% of all of the currency in circulation has been created within the last 18 months. That's certainly watering down the dollars in my pocket, in your pocket, and in all of our retirement and investment accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. And, look at like Southwest Florida, for example, that Fort Myers area where many Midwesterners like to go. The real estate prices there, I just read it this week, went up 26% last year.
Wow.
That's 26% inflation, folks, on housing. And so, and look at the price of fuel where it was over a year ago. So, if you've got those, lower yielding investments, that money sitting in a bank account like all of us do. Peter and I are both included in this conversation by all means. Is, what are alternatives we look at when we deal with retired clients right now? Then, they need to keep pace with inflation. That is one of the biggest threats they have out there. They got the stock market they have to worry about if case these inflated stock prices all of a sudden correct and they lose some of their portfolio's value because of that. They've got money in the checking accounts not earning much of anything. And then how are they deriving income only off of the growth of their mutual funds going up in value versus dividends and bond interest like we traditionally used to have? So, the traditional retirement outlook right now, guys, what your mom and dad retired on, or grandma and grandpa's, if you will, looks different right now.
Now, Chris, there is a time and a place for money in the bank, and we all need to have some immediately accessible cash. A lot of pundits, a lot of financial gurus talk about 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses is the appropriate amount to have in your emergency account. Now, I understand the lower limit, but there's also an upper limit on that emergency account, and it's for a reason. If we keep more than about 6 months worth of living expenses sitting in a bank or emergency account, then we are losing money safely. That money is not keeping up with the purchasing power, the inflation rate.
Yeah, Peter. And if, there is what we call the rule of 72 out there, and most of the listeners are like, yeah, I've heard of that. That has to do with how I make my money double if I invest. An example is if you make 6% on your money, it will double in value in 12 years. Okay. The rule of 72 also factors in with inflation. So again, if inflation is running at 6%, you need twice as much income to buy the same things in 12 years. And how do you do that in retirement when all you're doing is investing, and then you're doing it more conservatively? So, we've had to add different types of investment asset classes. We've had to structure the annuity side in there to guarantee that income stream and take advantage of what we call mortality credits that come inside that are inherent when investing using the insurance industry's vehicles that they have available. So, not necessarily thinking outside of the box, but it's more than a retirement lifestyle 2030 fund, guys. That might not be what you need to get you all the way through.
And Roger Ibbotson, a pretty famed economist, stated that with the low yields, the low rates that we are seeing from bonds and bond funds, and then the danger inherently to the principal value, specifically of bond funds, if interest rates start to rise, that many of those insurance industry products with the mortality credits, Chris, probably would lower overall portfolio risk, increase overall portfolio efficiency and income, and lower the fees to the portfolio.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And as a fee-based money manager, I would say that, anything we can do to help lower the fees for our clients is a win for them. And, and also, how do we, a good way for us to offset overall portfolio risk. And with, Roger Ibbotson is a guru in the investment world. He is not an insurance agent by any stretch of the imagination. And, Morningstar thought so much of him, they bought his company. That's what they think of Roger Ibbotson. And, I love that article that he had written. And, that's a purist out there, Peter. He doesn't have a bias because he's not, trying to sell anybody anything. It was just pure factual research that is hard to find in today's world. I mean, let's be honest, between masks and vaccines and medications and ivermectin and all of that, man, it is nice to get some clear-cut factual data out there. And that's what Mr. Ibbotson, had done for, make our world, give it some more credible evidence in what we do for our clients in structuring lifetime income, reducing portfolio risks, lowering the fee structure, managing the tax side of things, and combating that inflation risk. So, a lot of things going on right now. No question about it, buddy, between that inflation risk and then the tax side of things, because you're not going to spend a gazillion dollars and say, hey, we're only going to tax a few amount of the people for it. Everybody's going to get taxed in this. It does come down to the economy, obviously.
Well, there's so many different issues that there is confusion on, Chris, and that's why sitting down with a qualified, experienced professional like Chris McIntire to look at your specific situation and the options that are available to you to face the risk that we will have into our financial future can be so beneficial, and why Chris McIntire offers you that opportunity with no cost and no obligation. Simply pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. So much of what you talk about, Chris, it's not just your opinion. It's people who study these things stating that there are problems right now inherent with the bond and bond fund market. There are likely problems that we will face with taxes into the future if we do not plan proactively. There are problems understanding and clarifying fees on our accounts, the expenses that we are paying for our investments. There are problems with inflation into the future, but sitting down and proactively planning for these things can help to address those problems and give us a better foundation and sense of security moving through what could be turbulent times into the future.
Yeah, no question about it, Peter. And, having the ability to lay it out for folks and let them see what the retirement looks like on some modern software that we have, and where we can adjust the taxes, we can adjust the inflation, we can talk about good markets and bad markets and let them see how this happens in real time, and not, we're not talking about somebody passing away early unexpectedly. We're not talking about anybody going into a nursing home on today's show, but those are all other very important elements that encompass a retirement plan. And, most of us are into the college football season and whatnot right now, the baseball playoffs, all that, whatever your sport is. I'm a hockey guy, but it's easier to do a football analogy. Is, we all know that Coach Day at the Ohio State Buckeyes, they just don't have a plan for the offense. They have a plan for the defense as well. So they have their overall game plan. And, if you want to listen to the Fireland Symphony to go a different direction here, we know the president over there very well, and obviously all the planning and the practice that they do before they put on a performance, you have to do that as well. Think of your retirement that way also.
It's not just one instrument out there practicing and then going to mesh well with the rest of the symphony. They all have to coordinate their efforts. And that's a lot like the different tools that we have available to us in our investment and financial progress, Chris, is that each tool plays a role. Each tool plays a specific note or range to bring it all together to give us the full picture of that financial symphony. It's all got to work together. You sort of serve as the conductor for many savers and investors across Northwestern Ohio, helping them better understand which tool and when to use it and what is the benefit, what is the cost, how to evaluate that. A lot of people don't have that clarity nor that resource to bring it all together. A lot of people have the tools available to them, Chris, but don't have a true picture of how to bring it all together. And that's what the Game Plan for Retirement Review is all about, ladies and gentlemen. All you need to do for that complimentary discussion with a qualified, experienced professional for that strategy session is give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. And Chris, there is some cost for money management and investment, and whether we realize it or not, we're probably all paying it, even with money sitting in the bank. The cost is what we're not earning by putting that money to use elsewhere. And so we really need to evaluate the cost and the benefit of every financial option and transaction that we have.
Yeah, good. That's a good perspective to lay out there for everybody, Peter, is, it is looking at all of these things individually. Is the growth portfolio, providing the growth we need it to? Is the medium to low risk bucket doing what it needs to? Does it need some tweaking? Do we need to add some real estate into pieces like that to help offset some of that inflation? Is the income bucket doing what it needs to do? Or if you don't have an income bucket, maybe that's where, coming in, sitting down with us, let's take a perspective of everything that you've got and look where the weaknesses are, and then talk about the options to help eliminate or mitigate those weaknesses, if you will. It may be taxes. It may be, some accounts you got high fees in, it may be not having any plan at all, or getting a second look at some of your current plan because nobody's spoken to you about the long-term care side, the Social Security taxation, maybe they've missed on the taxation side of things. So they put the money in a portfolio and hope and pray it will all work out. And, we want it to be more than a hope and a prayer.
Well, Chris, there at McIntire Retirement Services, you do offer the game plan for retirement. And I know this looks to evaluate and optimize many different aspects of the financial and retirement outlook. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to take part in this, if you'd like to take a look at the risks that you're taking, the fees that you're paying, the taxes you may be liable for, the income, the investment side of things, the taxes, the healthcare side of things, creating a legacy, your opportunities to offset taxes or inflation or the fees or low interest rates, all of those that we have talked about today that are of concern are addressed. Pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. But Chris, what does that process generally look like? I know you've got many clients that you do ongoing service and reviews for, continuing to monitor and update all of these elements of their plan, but you also do open your doors at McIntire Retirement Services and have the opportunity for not yet clients to take advantage of what your clients already know and experience.
Yeah, Peter, and that begins with having a discussion, taking a look at the current assets that you have. We talk about the Social Security aspect. So we have people come in with their current information, if you will. What is your basic living expenses? And from that standpoint, then share some of our concerns that we see from the 30,000 foot level, and then refine our plan as the process goes on over about 3 to 4 meetings is typical for us to see if we're going to accept these folks as clients here into the practice. We know what we want to do as a business and and how we best serve our clients. And we want to make sure that the people that we bring in fit into that mold as well. That makes a successful relationship. We do not try to be all things to all people.
Well, again, if you would like to take part in that process, at the very least, get a better picture, a clear snapshot of where you stand today and some of the issues that you may face into your financial future, a discussion of how to face those things with confidence. That is what the planning process, the strategy session, and the game plan for retirement are all about. Pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. And Chris, we don't just talk about these things because it's lip service. Fees, taxes, inflation. These are serious issues that we are hearing a lot about, but I feel like we're hearing a lot about them because people feel overwhelmed by them. There are ways that we can address them, and we talk about them here because we want to do then more than just talk about them. We encourage people to actually act to handle these things proactively.
Yeah, absolutely. And education is the key to helping them make clear, concise decisions. If it's often been said, a confused mind always says no, because no is painless in some degree, where sometimes making changes can be uncomfortable for folks because what we do for a living is completely different, and asking them to look at their retirement, their investment nest egg that they have blindly been putting money into for 30 years. And then considering how fragile that is going forward for the next 30 years into their retirement, for some folks that makes them uncomfortable. So we have to, give them that comforting aspect. And, sometimes you have to tell them what they need to hear. You certainly don't want to tell them what they want to hear. There are enough brokers out there that'll do that. That's not what we do.
You mentioned how in football, good coaches have a plan for the offense, a plan for the defense, even the special teams, I'd say. I also want to make the point that oftentimes there is a game plan for the first half of the game and the second half of the game. And for the analogy to our financial lives, Chris, the first half of the game is based on the paycheck and not spending all of the paycheck, saving it, investing it, growing, accumulating, investment management, getting as much money in those retirement accounts as possible. Much of the second half of the game is about preservation, protection, and proper management from the aspects that we've been talking about today, maintaining purchasing power, not overpaying in taxes, keeping more of our money where possible, not overpaying in fees, and really understanding the plan for how to generate income. Chris, that's really where your niche lies. And a lot of people have not had the conversation to make that transition effectively.
Yeah, you're right, Peter. And, it's often been said, offense will win you games, defense will win you championships, and everybody plays to win championships. And but what we do is certainly help people, coach them through this entire retirement game that they're going to go through, and help them make clear, concise decisions.
Well, if you would like to have that assistance from Chris McIntire, Northwestern Ohio's resource, pick up the phone, give a call, get that game plan for retirement put together. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Chris, we always appreciate your time talking about these important topics here on the program for Northwestern Ohio savers and investors each and every week.
Hey, nice to be with you, everybody. Stay safe out there. Thank you for listening this weekend.
Visit McIntyreRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.
Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Indexed or fixed annuities are not designed for short-term investments and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract.